chair one. So I've got a series of questions. I'm going to have them, they're going to do their introductions, and then we'll go through the questions. It's 5 minutes for each person for the introduction and for the questions. So if you have any extra questions, these I got from the people online. So, but I do save the ones that are given to me today for other events. We have several coming up. So I'll let them begin. And you guys decide who's going to be first.
Start at that end.
Thank you, Deborah, for inviting me here today. And thank all of you for showing up. In a time when it's easy to feel overwhelmed and tune out, showing up matters. For the last 3 years, I served as Congresswoman Val Hoyle's field representative, where I helped her direct more than $5 million in federal funding to Lincoln County. I helped constituents navigate issues with federal agencies, and I built lasting relationships with city, county, state, and federal officials, agencies, and staff. Before that, I was a journalist here in Lincoln County. I asked the hard questions and I told the truth about what I found. Let's talk about news for a moment. Where do you get your news? A newspaper, if you can find one? Facebook? Cable? According to Pew Research, more than half of Americans, 54% of us, say they at least sometimes get their news from social media. Here's what I know after my time as a journalist here on the coast. Where we get our news and information matters now more than it ever has. We used to have a shared point of reference. A local newspaper covered local government. Television brought us national and world news. We were presented with a set of facts that we could argue. That was before alternative facts. Today, you and your neighbor might watch the same event and see two entirely different things because you're receiving completely different information. That's not a political problem, it's a democracy problem. And we cannot solve it by talking only to people who already agree with us. Much of the information we're receiving isn't meant to inform us. It's meant to enrage us. Outrage drives clicks, clicks drive revenue, and the anger divides us further. Ronald Reagan, not exactly a liberal hero, had a phrase he borrowed from the Russians: trust, but verify. That is the baseline skill of journalism, and it's the baseline skill of citizenship. Early in my tenure at the Newport News-Times, I reported on an illegal encampment that had taken over a campground on the Siuslaw National Forest at Five Rivers. People were living in an RV parked on the bend of Five Rivers Road. Residents were angry and frustrated. The story and accompanying video prompted a collective cleanup and contributed to Lincoln County creating the Abandoned RV Abatement Program, a $500,000 initiative to clear abandoned RVs from public and private land across the county. That is what local journalism can do, a small story prompting collective action. Local journalism is the reporter sitting in the back of the room so you don't have to. We're lucky to have the Lincoln Chronicle, where Quentin Smith is doing exactly that kind of work. He started Yachats News as a passion project by showing up at city council and fire board meetings in Yachats. Now he has 2 full-time reporters and a roster of freelancers. He expanded coverage to a wider swath of Lincoln County. When local newsrooms close, and they are closing, accountability disappears. Rumor, misinformation, and manipulation fill the void. Support real journalism, subscribe, and share. So what can we do? Ask questions. Who owns this outlet? Is this reporting or is it opinion? Can you reach the reporter to ask a question or challenge an assertion? Hold your elected officials accountable. Demand transparency. Ask, how did you decide that? Who did you talk to? Where did the money go? And here's the big ask. Seek out people who don't already agree with you. I know that's hard right now. But the people on the other side of the political divide are our neighbors, They drive the same roads, they drink the same water, and they want their kids and grandkids to have a future here on this coast. We have far more in common than our differences, but we cannot solve our shared problems if we can't agree on shared facts. Trust is earned, verify everything, stay engaged, and keep showing up. As a journalist, I held local government accountable from the outside, asking hard questions, shining a light on what wasn't working. Now I want to bring that same standard of fairness, honesty, and accountability to the inside. I'm Sherry Brubaker. I'm asking for your vote for Lincoln Commissioner. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Dawn, and I am running for position 2 to fill the remaining 2 years of former Commissioner Claire Hall's term. I've lived and worked here in Lincoln County 22 years, and this is where I've dedicated my career to public service. But my connection to this place goes back even further to childhood summers spent vacationing here with my family. I grew up in a military family. My father was in the Air Force, so I lived in a number of places as a kid, but my grandparents and all my aunts and uncles and cousins lived here in Oregon. And when we came for family visits in the summer, we'd come here to Lincoln County, to the coast, usually to my grandparents' little vacation trailer because they loved the ocean. So this place has been very special to me. It's where I caught my first fish, I dug my first clam, and we even celebrated my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary here. So I've had a long connection to this place. My parents used to take me to the Hatfield Marine Center because I had an interest in marine biology, and they were trying to stoke that interest. I even went to the Oregon Coast Aquarium the first year it opened in 1992, which is the year I graduated from high school and went off to college to study marine biology at UC Santa Cruz. I then went on to study at the University of Washington, studying ocean policy and management. I really wanted to focus on the human side of ocean and coastal issues. I wanted to help coastal communities thrive and take care of our coastal natural resources. So this coast has helped shape me, and it's one of the reasons I've dedicated my career to coastal communities. I was thrilled after graduate school when I was offered a position in Newport at the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. So that's what brought me back to this coast that's been so special to me. I've spent the last 2 decades managing public programs and managing complex government budgets, working with communities on ocean and coastal issues, and building partnerships across government, businesses, and local organizations. So through my work at Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, a small nonprofit called Coastal Quest, and then my own consulting business, I've helped communities navigate really complex issues with clarity, transparency, and trust. I've also served our community through volunteer roles. I've spent the last 4 years serving on Lincoln County Budget Committee. I serve on the board and am treasurer of the Samaritan House Family Shelter, and I also serve on the state's Ocean Science Trust. So these roles have helped me deepen my understanding of county finances, of county services. They've helped me understand and work on some of our local community needs, such as housing insecurity and affordability, childcare, helping people in recovery. And then they've also continued my thoughtful stewardship of public resources. So I'm running for county commissioner because I believe strong communities aren't built by accident. I believe they're built through steady leadership, responsible stewardship, and a commitment to serving the people who call Lincoln County home. So I'm looking to bring stability, service, and stewardship to Lincoln County government. There are 6 priorities that I'm ready to focus on as commissioner. Number 1 is access to health and mental health services. 2 is childcare and support for working families. 3 is housing affordability and homelessness solutions. 4 is economic development and a skilled local workforce. 5th is investments in infrastructure and us planning for the future. And 6th is stewardship of natural resources, supporting commercial fishing, outdoor recreation, and making sure future generations have access to these natural resources. So I'm a practical, solutions-oriented leader who knows how to work in complex government systems. I know how to build trusted relationships and move important work forward. And that's the kind of study collaborative leadership I'm looking to bring to County Commission. Thank you.
Buenas noches, me llamo Kathy Camargo Rigby y quiero la posición de comisionada de Lincoln County, el asiento número 1. So good evening, everybody. My name is Kathy Camargo Rigby, and I'm running to fill Lincoln County Commissioner seat 1. And I'm running because my entire life has been shaped by service, resilience, and a deep belief that communities thrive when we take care of one another. I'm the daughter of immigrant parents from Lima, Peru, who came to this country with determination and hope to build a better life. When I was 8 years old, my father passed away and everything changed. I watched my mother work multiple jobs and raise 5 children, including working as a nutritionist for Suffolk County, Massachusetts, where I grew up, where she taught families how to survive on a food stamp budget with dignity. But even with her strength and her sacrifice, years of disinvestment and then rapid reinvestment in my community meant that we had to leave the community we loved. Those experiences taught me what it feels like when the cost of living rises faster than a paycheck. What it means to fight for stability and how essential compassion and steady leadership are to build strong communities. My professional life has been dedicated to opportunity. In my career, I've written and managed millions of dollars in federal, state, and foundational grants. I've built programs that support working families, and I've helped communities access the resources they need to thrive. I worked across housing, juvenile probation, community, and economic development, always with the same goal, to take policies and programs and turn them into real solutions for the people who rely on them. One of my goals is housing as a foundation. In every role I've held, one truth has been clear: housing is the foundation for everything else. There's no single solution, but there are practical steps that we can take. We can strengthen our public-private partnerships, especially with local employers who are struggling for the homes that their workforce needs. We can preserve the homes we already have so that families aren't pushed out because of disrepair. And we can streamline the path to attainable housing so our teachers, fishers, hospitality workers, and service workers can actually live in the community that they serve. Transportation, another key item for me. Economic mobility only works if the people can get to where the opportunity lies. Whether you're in a coastal town or in a rural neighborhood, your ability to thrive shouldn't depend on owning an expensive car. I'm committed to a transportation vision that connects our county, making it easier, safer, and more affordable for families to reach work, school, healthcare, and essential services. I want to support working families and economic mobility here in our county. I believe that hard work should actually pay off. As your commissioner, I will champion economic development that starts at the kitchen table. That means investing in workforce development that prepares residents for the high-demand local careers. It means supporting small businesses that vary in complex permitting and regulatory processes that face high commercial costs and workforce shortages. And it means removing the barriers that keep families from finding stable, attainable housing, because economic mobility starts with having a secure place to call home. Why am I running? I'm running because Lincoln County is the home that I chose. It's where I found community, purpose, and a sense of belonging. And I want my grandchildren to grow up seeing that anyone, even anyone that looks like me, can help shape a community that serves everyone. I want every resident, no matter their background, income, or zip code, to feel seen, supported, and valued by their community. This campaign isn't about me, it's about us. It's about building a future where we don't have to choose between the place we love and the price we can pay. I'm asking for your vote, your voice, and your energy. So please check out my website, kathyrigby.com, And I'm on Facebook under Elect Kathy Rigby, because together we can build a more resilient, more connected Lincoln County. One where every family has the chance to thrive. So let's build tomorrow together.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Walter Chuck. I'm your current county commissioner serving in position number 3. I'm the father of 2, grandfather of 2, and husband to my wife, Rebecca. I've lived in Lincoln County for over 22 years and have been an elected official for 15 of those. During that time, I've worked on numerous projects as a port commissioner. A couple of them were the Newport International Terminal, the NOAA facility, and also lots of port infrastructure projects such as dock replacement, the approach to Port Dock 5, and some other improvements along the Newport International Terminal. Currently, I'm working with a group that is overseeing the rebuilding of the county commons. I was involved with bringing the Packwave facility here. That is the first grid-connected marine renewable energy site in the United States. I was as a FIND member, that's Fishermen Involved in Natural Energy. That was an advisory group to the county. And also as a port commissioner, I was on the team that was soliciting for them to come here. And we were awarded that site, and we're going to have 2 devices out there this summer. Really looking forward to that. Currently, I'm serving on boards representing fisheries, transportation, healthcare, solid waste, and conservation. I've been an active volunteer in my community. I was a stay-at-home dad for over 10 years, and so that allowed me to be the president of my son's preschool. I assisted in both my children's classrooms, participated in the Food Shares Backpacks for Kids programs for many years. I coached their sports teams. I was a father at my daughter's dance company. I was also done some work out at the Central Coast Food Web and Community Services Resource Center. That is our homeless shelter, the winter shelter. In the last 13 months that I've been on the commission, they've been what expected and not what expected, with some successes and sadness with the passing of fellow Commissioner Claire Hall. During that time, I've been able to accomplish a few things by making use of my new and old contacts, hard work, and initiative. That's one of the things I do is I look for things that need to be done. I don't wait to be invited. If I see a need, I try and go there and put my abilities to work. One of those first was a Coast Guard helicopter. In 2015, I was a port commissioner, and that was the first time that the helicopter was under threat of being taken from our community. That was due to budget shortfalls. We were able to get that back. In 2018, there's legislation passed that strengthened the air facility here and putting forth very stringent processes for that facility to be moved. Those were not followed when we found out that the helicopter had been giving our area some reduced services. It all pretty much came to a head latter part of October, first part of November. Our local elected officials were actually the boots on the ground. We were able to find out what was going on with the Coast Guard facility and started reaching out to the Coast Guard, myself, Senator Anderson, Representative Gomberg, local officials from the city. We were able to start hearing things about the Coast Guard. They also heard about the potential ICE facility, which I am not in favor of bringing. We were, like I said, we were the eyes and ears on the ground. I spent a lot of time with the city of Newport, talking to our federal officials, kind of getting them information. And that information we passed on to them allowed them to ask better questions and allowed our senators to get the letter from the Commandant that we wouldn't be losing the facility. Currently, we are waiting on the injunction that we have in place to be strengthened or ratified, and we're keeping our ears open for the ICE facility. Going forward, to make use of these relationships, develop new ones in order to get things done for the people of Lincoln County. County finances will be another item I'm focusing on. Over half our county budget comes from outside sources. That's state, federal grants, and those forth. I made sure that I've kept those lines of communication open with our federal and state representatives to make sure that those funds do continue to come into the county, and I will continue to do that. Economic development and job creation are essential priorities for me. We must support the industries that sustain our economy, such as commercial fishing, tourism, natural resources, and marine science. Affordable housing is also part of economic development. I will continue to work with local nonprofits and other entities to find ways to fund and build more housing for working people. I'd just like to say this is not a primary election for me, and I look forward to your vote. Walter Chuck for LincolnCounty.com.
Okay, first question, and I'm combining the two parts, and Walter, I'll start with you since you kind of opened up this question. With the uncertainty of state and federal funding in the next few years, what will you do to keep funding coming into the county? And how will you prioritize reductions in county programs if necessary?
Sure. Like I said, the first thing I brought up was our general fund is less than half of our total budget, and those are the only funds that we can actually count on. Counties are the bottom of the ladder. Many of the funds that we get from are outside, and we need to make sure, and I will make sure, that I continue to work with federal and state officials to make sure current levels are sustained as much as possible. One of the things that we do as county commissioners is we work with our local elected officials and keep an eye on them. We need our eye kept on them. One of the things that we do is make sure that when they're passing legislation that they don't pass unfunded mandates, that where they require us to provide services or other things that the state is not also going to provide us funds for. We don't like that. We also need to make sure that the state continues to do to funding those services that they mandate us by ORSs to provide. It has become very evident to myself and probably everybody else that the state is trying to pay for less and less of these services that they mandate. So it is incumbent on us to make sure that we hold them accountable and they make sure that they fund those essential services that they make sure that we have to provide. Outside funding to backfill is if possible with grants and other things, but we need to make sure that we use those to fund existing programs and not create new ones. And how would I prioritize reductions to county programs? Commissioners hold the purse strings, so the one thing we also need to do is we have to make sure that we trust our department heads to make sure that they are aware of the budget situation, let them make the decisions, but also work with them to make sure that these services that are very essential to our residents are still provided. Look at what are mandated versus mandated, and also, we do have some. We'll find out as we have more that we do have some departments that have overlapping services, and if we have overlapping services, make sure that we can combine them, assign them to one department if it's two departments that have overlapping services to save money on that. And in the end, it will be our decision, and then we need to make sure that we make those with providing services and also using compassion and making sure that we make the best decision for the residents of the county.
Thank you.
Should I just finish? Okay. So budgets are interesting, and that's something that I do every day. As a grants manager, I'm not managing one budget, but I'm managing upwards of 10 to 15 budgets at any given time. And these are multi-million-dollar projects and programs, and when you deal with the federal government, especially right now, things can be very uncertain. And that doesn't just happen every quarter or it can happen every day. There can be a new change, as we're experiencing right now in this administration's term. So things fluctuate. And so how do you prepare for those things? And then that's crucial in a budget situation. So you have to be prepared, you have to do planning, and you have to do strategizing. And so as a Board of Commissioners, we can do those things at the onset. We can plan, we can short-range plan and long-range plan, we can set priorities. But when the changes happen, communication is very crucial. I have to speak with multiple departments and different people in the departments, and I have to be aware of who are those people that can make the decisions, who are the people that have the information I need if we need to pivot on an idea or on a project, and who are the people that can inform the decision that I have to make, or that the federal government has to make, or that Nina, our city manager, has to make. And so You need to be able to work collaboratively with your departments and your subject matter experts. And on something like a county budget, you need to all be working off the same page. What we're doing in the city of Newport, which I think has been highly effective since we've gotten a new city manager, is we're doing the short range and the long range planning, but we're also in communication with one another. The departments all know where they sit in relationship to their individual budget and in relationship to the city budget. And that is a great strategy, because when people know where they are, they know when they need to adjust. They know where they have to ask for more money, go after grants, call me, look for more grants, or where they have to tell their staff, easy on the paper orders this month, right? So you know how to make the adjustments because you're in communication with one another. And then where would I make the crucial cuts? It's a very difficult question, but having been in municipal government for 7 years, I can tell you that municipal governments know how to do this. Department heads know how to do more with less. It's a constant battle. And some years it's more, and some years it's bigger cuts like we're about to face. But you talk to your department heads, you work collaboratively, you trust the people who you ask to support this, which is, a board that Kristen is on. She's on the budget commission, and you talk to the public. This is going to be hard things are happening. You can have that open communication, and you can say, there's hard choices before us. And so you need to communicate that out so that the community knows that you've taken, these are all bad decisions, but which bad decision do we need to go with right now? And this is why. And that needs to be made clear. And so that would be the route that I would take as a county commissioner when discussing the budget. And on a personal note, I would just say, I have been that community member that's had to do more with less. I'm a wife and mother of 6 children. I know all about pulling in the budget strings. And so I would keep that in mind, that the people we affect most are the people who have to do more with a lot less. And so that would be top of mind for me. And I don't want to pick which group or department, because I think it just kind of depends. And when the department heads work collaboratively, when we work with the representatives from the county who are in the committee, good things can happen when you work collaboratively.
Thank you. I think both Walter and Kathy have really excellent approaches and ideas, and I echo a lot of those approaches. And as Walter said, this is going to be a real challenge for us losing state and federal funding, especially because a lot of these county services, such as public health, mental health, primary care, and disability services, the county is required to provide these services by the state. So as county commissioner, I can't rewrite state or federal law, but I can be a strong advocate and make sure Lincoln County isn't left behind. So, Walter mentioned working closely with our state legislators, their staff, also our U.S. Congress people, their staff. But there's another organization that's really powerful. It's the Association of Oregon Counties. This is a statewide partnership of commissioners across all 36 of Oregon counties. And we band together to advocate for county interests at the state and even at the federal level. The idea is, if we're mandated to do these things or we're facing similar challenges, we're stronger together advocating at the state or federal level. So I know Walter works on some issues with the Association of Oregon Counties. That is definitely a group, and depending what issue that I would be working closely with. So I do believe advocacy is one of the most powerful tools the commissioner has, and I do plan to use that. I also would look at strengthening our relationships with state agencies. So a lot of the county funding comes through contracts that the counties have with state agencies, right? So these are the services we're required to provide. The state provides funding to the state agency, and then that money goes to the counties. So these are agencies like the Oregon Health Authority, the Department of Human Services, and others. So the counties have to negotiate that contract with the state agencies every year. And so a strong relationships helps with those negotiations. It helps with coordination, means there will likely be fewer surprises. And it's going to help make sure that counties are receiving every dollar we're eligible for. So this is an area where my background in state government, I think, is a real asset because I know how these state systems work and how to navigate them. Similar to what Kathy and Walter are saying is, looking for alternative funding and looking for partnerships. That includes, maybe regional collaborations that can stretch our county dollars further, where services might be shared between different counties or at a regional level, and supporting county staff in finding grants or just different ways of finding revenue, different types of revenue. So there are creative ways we can bring resources to the county that we're maybe not fully tapping into right now. When hard decisions get to be made, it is relying on the experts who are running our departments. But I agree with Kathy, like they need to understand the larger county view also. And then it's up to the Board of Commissioners to be looking at the county as a whole. There very likely could be some really tough cuts and decisions. I don't know what they will, but I think it's very clear when those cuts and services happen or staff get reduced, that it's clearly communicated to the public about what cuts happened, why, and what services now are not going to be either provided or they're going to be provided at a reduced level. And then being future ready. So when we have a plan, so when funding does start becoming available again, when financial times are better, we are ready as a county to pounce on those and bring those monies to the county. So, thanks.
This isn't hypothetical to me. I've already done this work. I mentioned Congresswoman Hoyle's $5 million that she brought into this county, and I was the liaison for the Congresswoman here in Lincoln County, and we will see $1 million to Siletz Fire for an emergency evacuation center, just over $1 million to Central Oregon Coast Fire and Rescue to repair their dilapidated building that also houses the paramedics, not just fire, and $2 million to Lincoln City for affordable housing, and $1 million to Oregon Coast Community College. But that's really not the extent of it. Congresswoman Hoyle brought in over $16 million to the 4th Congressional District. And my job, I worked in Benton County as well as Lincoln County and Coastal Lane County. So I worked really, really closely with Art Donnelly. I don't know if you folks know about the water in Mapleton, but they have boil notices regularly, and it's just been horrible. A real small community, 500 and some people, and where is a district like that going to get the money to redo that system that used to get money from the timber industry, right? That the timber industry supported so many of our small rural communities, and now that industry is not there anymore. So I know these programs. I know how the process works, who to call, how to make a case, and how to get a rural county like ours, rural areas in our county, to the front of the line. And we have to acknowledge that the federal landscape right now is genuinely uncertain. And that means that Lincoln County needs a commissioner who has those relationships already at the state and federal level. I know federal money is not always the answer. Sometimes it's about making sure the county is positioned well for grants, has the right local matches in place, and isn't leaving money on the table because no one followed through. I've done this, and I'm ready to keep doing it. As for prioritizing program reductions, that's certainly, I think everyone's alluded to that's going to be a difficult choice. But before we can make those choices, I think we have to understand the lay of the land. And that takes time and homework before you start making the decisions. I would want to start with a full picture of what the county is spending, what's mandated, what's discretionary, and what is delivering real results for residents. Not everything that's labeled essential is actually essential, and not everything that looks cuttable is actually safe to cut. What I won't do is make cuts from 30,000 feet without talking to the people running those programs and the people depending on them. That's how you break things that take years to rebuild. I'd also take a good hard look at where we're leaving revenue on the table before we start cutting services. Cuts should be a last resort, not a first instinct. But if they're necessary, they need to be made in an honest, transparent way with the input of the community, not to the community. It has to be a collective decision. I think it's really important to always keep in mind that because we live here, we have more in common than our differences. And we have to work together. We have to work together.
Thank you. Okay, Walter, I'll start with you again. Can you briefly explain your role as a county commissioner and how you seek to build stability in our county government?
Okay, well, my current role as county commissioner, what I try and do is to make sure that I present myself that I want to make my decisions, bring stability, be thoughtful about it, and also do my homework, make sure that I know what I'm going to be making decisions on. The other thing that I need to also realize is that we're a board of 3, currently a board of 2. One commissioner does not have the power to do anything. The authority that the commission has is acting as a whole. I cannot direct staff. I cannot make decisions upon my own. It's incumbent of us to work as a team. What my power is, or what the best thing that I can do as a compensated elected official, as a convener collaborator, I make sure I use that authority to bring people to the table, whether that's state agencies, local entities, or whatever, to address an issue, solve a problem, bring funding, or what that issue may need. And then also make sure that I work with other elected officials. County commissioners do not have the authority to tell other elected officials what they can and can't do unbeknownst to other people. I could not have gone to the school district last night and insist that they fund the Siouxette school. But what we can do as elected officials is work with the other elected bodies, so that's the Water Conservation District, Water District, or other things to make sure that we can address county problems together. Realize what I can and can't do. Basically, commissioners make policy. They set the budget. We buy and sell property, we enter into contracts, appoint and dismiss department heads. We have currently we're supposed to have 2 employees, council and administrator, and that was one of the county administrator was a position that the former commission created, so we did not have to be involved in the day-to-day operations, and it allows us to focus on things such as bringing funding to the county. So I think that by your actions as a commissioner, you should be doing these things and making sure that you're seen as working in the best interest of the county.
My idea for bringing stability to the county is to have clear and consistent leadership and communication, both with the community, with the staff, and with each other. My work right now as a grants manager for the city, I have to be in constant communication with city council, the city manager, with every department, and all of the staff in every department, because I don't ever know who I'll need to talk to make a project or a program work. I also have to be really good about researching lots of topics that I never thought I would have to understand and become a subject level expert for that grant application, which means that I study a lot and then I communicate out what's needed so that the staff understands what the goals of the grant are, so that council understands why I'm looking for this money and why we're partnering in this way, and so that the community knows what's going to happen with the money that we get. And hopefully we always get it, right? So I believe in clear communication, and it needs to be simple because we sometimes overcomplicate things, and the relationships work better when everybody has clear and simple language and everyone understands the rules of the road. So that's how I would hope to start to build stability with clear communication. Also, there needs to be rules to the road. I'm in favor of organization and processes. Because I've worked in public service for 7 years in multiple different cities, everyone has a different way of doing things, and that's fine. And anybody can work from different processes all the time, as long as you know what they are. You don't know what you don't know, right? So as long as it's clearly communicated to staff, to each other, and to the community, everybody can understand the rules of the road, and you can function in a more stable way when people understand the rules of the road. I think that's what helps keep our cars on the road correctly, right? Hopefully without impeding on each other too much. Another approach is decision making. I have to make on-the-spot decisions constantly about budgets, about programs, about projects, and I have to be able to present and defend my decisions at any time. So if the federal government cuts a grant tomorrow and we're midstream on trying to roll out a design for a particular conduit or our systems, I have to be able to talk to my department heads and say, how are we going to shift? Where are we? How much have we spent? Who do we have to report to so that we get the money that we're owed, so that we can submit the reports that we're required to, so that the city council understands where we are and what's happened, so my city manager can turn around and then explain that information to the community. So being able to make split-second decisions and also explain those decisions in a way that people use the information that you're providing is super important to help create stability. These things that I mentioned also happen to be how you create trust. And I think that's what's sadly lacking right now, is that there isn't trust between the community and the county, between county members on the board, between staff and the commissioners. And all of that needs to be repaired. It won't happen overnight, but it can certainly start with clear and consistent communication.
Thanks, Kathy. So I think one of the most important things I can do to help bring stability to the county commission is focusing on restoring public trust. And I think one of the ways is by strengthening our formal public processes. So that includes improving the Board of Commission meetings. So that means, I think, having a predictable time for a general public comment period at every single commission meeting. It's really important that the public has an opportunity to weigh on the formal public record and to feel heard. So offering public comment also on every decision item. So there's a general public comment period, and then for each decision that the county provides, there's an opportunity to comment on that agenda item. This is a process we used on the Fish and Wildlife Commission at the state, and I think even Newport City Council uses a very similar. So the other thing is setting consistent time limits that are fairly enforced for everyone, and making sure the sign-up process is simple and clear. So when people know what to expect and feel heard, trust begins to grow. Also be clear about the legal limits the commission operates under, like Oregon's public meeting laws, and the topics commissioners are legally prohibited from discussing. But even when we can't share details, I think commissioners can explain the why we can't discuss a topic or address a topic, and that kind of transparency will help start to rebuild confidence. I also think stability comes from bringing government to the people. That may include maybe holding some Board of Commission meetings or work sessions in other communities. So maybe that's partnering with the city of Newport or the city of Lincoln City to hold our meetings in their facilities, or partnering with public libraries. So the idea is holding these meetings across the county and creating more informal opportunities for dialogue, like listening sessions. When commissioners show up in people's own communities, it helps strengthen those relationships over time and will help to start reduce tension. I also want to focus on improving communication inside county government. I would be regularly holding consistent meetings with department heads, elected officers, and key program leads. I think the other big thing that's missing right now is the two position vacancies that are pretty important. One is the department head for Health and Human Services, especially with large cuts in federal and state funding. I think they need someone at the helm to help navigate these uncertain times for that department. And I know Walter has reported that they are interviewing, so that's great news. But the other key position I think that's been vacant for over a year is the county administrator. That the county administrator looks at the big picture of the county, works across all departments and offices, and also supports the Board of County Commissioners. Right now, those job duties are largely falling on county council. We need some separation between county council and legal advice and supporting the board and everyday business at the board and the county. So those are some key things, and I would love to help with recruitment for a county administrator. I think there's other things we can be doing to bring someone very qualified to that position. So my approach is practical and grounded how I've led throughout my career. It's improving the processes, strengthening the systems, and creating more opportunities for real dialogue. And that's how help bring stability back to our county government.
That's a tough act to follow. A county commissioner sets policy, oversees the budget, and is ultimately accountable to everyone in the county, not just the people who vote for them. What that requires is showing up prepared, reading the documents, asking the hard questions before the vote, not after, and being accessible to people who normally don't have a seat at the table. Stability comes from consistency and competence. Lincoln County needs someone who does the homework, builds relationships across party lines, and shows up every single time. I'm not coming to the board to learn on the job. I'm coming ready to work with relationships, the experience, and the understanding of how to move things through government to get things done. I've spent years working at the intersection of local government, federal agencies, and the community organizations doing the actual work on the ground. As a journalist covering local government, as a field representative navigating federal bureaucracy on the behalf of Lincoln County residents, I know how these systems work, and I will make them work for Lincoln County. And I would just add, I didn't have it in my question. I misunderstood. I thought we were doing 5 minutes for all the questions. But it's very key to fill the positions in the county that are vacant. That's very important for us to do. We can't have commissioners doing things that are outside the scope of their responsibility. And if they're going to do that, we need to specify exactly what that is so everybody understands the expectations are the same. If there's not going to be a county administrator, then the commissioners need to have a workload divided among them and assume those responsibilities. If we don't, and absolutely recruit a good county administrator, but it's really difficult to recruit people to this community because of the expensive housing, because of some of the challenges that we face. Not everybody wants to drive as far as we need to go to some of our medical appointments, for example. So, you know, maybe we need to look at who is here in this community ready to step up. I don't know. I think we need to think outside the box.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start this question with Kathy. We see right now that there's a lot of attacks on our immigrant community and our LGBT community, especially the trans community. So my question is, do you believe county government should play a role in helping reduce inequality in our communities?
I do, and I'm making a first step by applying for this position, right? Because representation matters. All of the voices need to be at the table. And when we don't have that, we're missing a crucial part of the workforce, of the thoughts and cultures, of the things that make us the community that we are. So this community is very diverse, and we need to be sure we include all of those strengths because we are stronger together. We do all bring something different, a different lens, and when we cover the issues that are important with all the different lenses, then we know we have a whole community. And we have a community that works for everybody. And when you don't have those viewpoints, something gets left off. And that's where you have community feeling inequitable, but you also have community sort of harming one another, maybe without intention, right? The thing about the detention center has really brought this community together because we have a sense that that's not who we are, and we can make a case for why economically that's not a great idea, why that would destroy our economy. But what's been beautiful to witness is that it's also made a case about our humanity and what we value here as a community. And that's what's made it feel safe to step up for a lot of people. But we have a lot of work to do in that also. So, you know, it's great to step up and say, you know, I want to represent my community, but there are a lot of people here that need representation. And what I think I bring to the table is that I'm a great listener and communicator. I feel as though I have the lived experience that can relate to a lot of the struggles that this county is facing, to a lot of the battles that this county is having, interpersonal, financial, and structural. And so I feel like when you have somebody that can relate to people, you can be more empathetic, and you can also strategize better because you can take on that perspective and bring that to the work that you do.
Kristen?
Sure. I do also agree that government plays a role in helping reduce inequality in our community. I don't think government alone should be addressing that, but we certainly play a role. And I want to be an ally to our immigrant population as well as to our LGBTQ community. And I want there to be, there are definitely, again, I'm a process person, so I like to harken back to there are things we can do within our services and processes to make things more equitable and accessible, whether it's putting things in multiple languages, meeting people where they're at. The library is a perfect example of not only do they provide amazing reading materials and resources, but there are basic food and personal care products available. It's meeting people where they're at, right? Providing government services where people are at, making them more accessible, making them able to understand. So I think also working with other partners in our community. So there are organizations in our community that are very well connected with the immigrant community or support the LGBTQ community. So working with them, supporting them. Again, how can we form partnerships that make sure we are an inclusive community and again, meet people where they're at so that everyone can live a safe, healthy, productive life in our community.
Yes, I will work with respect for all. And what I think that looks like at the county level is making sure that our social services are funded and accessible, especially for seniors, working families, and people in our rural communities who are already stretched thin and about to be stretched thinner by some of the policies that are coming down from Washington. It means paying attention to how we zone land and permit housing, because those decisions determine who can afford to live here and who gets pushed out. It means making sure that federal and state dollars that come into this county are directed toward the people with the greatest need. I've already done a lot of that work, the funding that I helped bring to this county, and I know how to keep doing it, even as the federal landscape gets harder to navigate. It means showing up for people who don't normally get shown up for. That's not a political position. That's why I'm running. Show up, let everyone be heard, listen, and then we need to work together to find solutions. Listening, asking questions, and finding solutions.
I would just say yes also. I think also is just a matter of common decency. We should be treated treating everybody with respect, and that should be very hard to do. Unfortunately, that's not something that's going on right now, so I think that's something we could all work on being better to each other. We live in a county with 50,000 people, and I think that we should realize that we are still a small community, and that everything we do affects our neighbors and our friends, and take that into consideration once in a while, and take a breath. As a county, yes, we can do a better job of providing for all the residents of the county, and making sure that we provide things in different languages, partnering with local groups that provide services to these communities. We can't solve everybody's problems, but what we can do is we can look at who is doing the work in the community and supporting them, whether that's through county programs, our nonprofit grant program, or economic development grant program, and things like that, and identify these parts of the community that are also helping us provide services to these communities that need to be reached out to. That is really important these days with the rising costs of goods and services. We need to make do with what we already have, and make sure that we use those resources to address as many groups in our community as possible. And as far as the ICE facility and all those things, that's no way to treat people. We don't need that here. My wife and I lived at the Malheur Refuge for 5 years, and we have a lot of friends there. And what happened there, I've seen what happens when something really divisive comes to the community, and we really don't need that here. We have friends over there whose families have never made up after that, and so that's a much smaller community than ours. But that's what something really divisive coming to community can do. I do not wish to see that here. And like I said, the best thing we can do is make sure that we just treat everybody with decency and respect, and remember that once in a while.
Thank you. All right, the next one is, give us an example of what you will do as commissioner to support affordable housing. Kristen?
Sure. I got some notes, sorry. So I do believe that safe, stable housing is a basic need, and without it, everything else becomes harder. So affordable housing is one of the biggest challenges our community and many communities are currently facing. One of the most effective things I believe I can do as commissioner is use my strengths as a partnership builder, help people who are already doing this type of work make real progress. So I've spent my career bringing experts together, helping them navigate government bureaucracy, finding funding, and solving problems creatively. And I'll bring that same approach to housing. That means working closely with cities, nonprofits, developers, state agents, and community partners, so we're aligned and moving in the same direction. And so we can unlock resources that match the scale of our housing challenges here in Lincoln County. So a concrete example is helping partners secure funding. I can work to help, whether that's state and federal grants or infrastructure dollars, or finding other financing tools that can make affordable housing projects possible. That's the type of work I, as a commissioner, and my skill set can do. I'll promote practical collaborative approaches that increase affordable housing options, provide transitional and supportive housing services, and help residents move towards long-term stability. That's the goal. Strong partnerships and smart investments are how we can make meaningful progress. So the example I'd like to highlight is, as commissioner, I'd be the person who brings the right people to the table, helps them navigate complex government systems, and make sure Lincoln County is positioned to take advantage of every opportunity to expand affordable housing.
Poverty in Lincoln County isn't abstract to me. I've reported on it, shining a light on the people and the organizations who are stepping up to do the work to help those with the greatest need. I've been in people's living rooms and heard what it actually, heard and seen what it actually looks like, the choices that people make when there isn't enough, the systems that are supposed to help but don't, and the dignity that people hold on to anyway. So here's what I would do. First, I'd make sure that we're capturing every dollar available to us. State and federal programs exist specifically to address rural poverty. Housing assistance, food security, workforce development. We need to put Lincoln County at the front of the line. Some of you might remember the governor's continuum of care when Lincoln County was left out of the continuum of care. And our Representative Gomberg, even though he'd just been elected and it was the governor of his party handing down this decision that was going to have Lincoln County miss out on a lot of the funding to create housing. And he went and he said, hey, what about Lincoln County? And so the rural counties ultimately were given a larger piece of that pie. So I'd work to make sure that county services are actually accessible to the people who need them. If you're working 2 jobs and you don't have reliable transportation, the county's office hours don't work for you. I loved your idea about taking the meeting to other places. I didn't get that far, but I think it's a great idea. I think that we need to accommodate people who might have different schedules, who can't access programs in their workday. I would also push for real coordination between the county and the nonprofits, tribes, and community organizations already doing the work on the ground. They know where the gaps are. A commissioner's job is to listen and then use every possible means to solve the problem. Poverty gets worse when county government looks away. I won't look away. Federal funding, the senators, every year, the senators open up the community initiated project submission portal. And the senators don't have a limit. Congresswoman Hoyle's limit last year was 15. She got 20 programs this year. And while they have to be spread all the way across the 4th Congressional District, she has successfully moved through last year, it's coming this year, $2 million for affordable housing in Lincoln City. I don't know what land is available here in the county that the county might own or that our different cities might own, but we can work together. I know someone who has a very good idea for workforce housing, and it can be scalable. I mention that word a lot because it's really important when you're asking for federal money or state money, any money, and you say, well, I need $2 million to do this. And they say, well, okay, here's $1 million. Can you still perform? You have to be able to still perform if you don't get all your money. So it's important to package the applications correctly and to target the programs that work. Housing is so important right now. The governor has a housing initiative. We need to work to get more housing. They're doing a lot of building up in Lincoln City. I think that's great. I'd like to see more of it across the county. We need housing at all levels. It's not just affordable housing. It's not just workforce housing. We need housing for our county administrator to come live here, for our doctors to come live here. And so we need to think about our vacation rentals. We need to think about our out-of-town property owners, because we aren't seeing a return on that. We're not seeing proper use of what we've got. So we need to really think about how we can build more housing. And when I'm done, sorry. Thank you. That question was a little bit different than the one you sent me. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Walter?
Sure. So all of these things, so I'll just say that number one, homelessness is not, it's not just a county issue, it's not just a city issue, it's statewide and national. We can only solve that by working together. the county in partnership with the city has done the Community Resource Center, the warming shelter in the wintertime. We have had no deaths since that opened up. So that is a big deal. The other thing that we were able to do with the help of the city is we do have a doctor there. And so the people there are able to get access to some basic medical care. We also made sure that there's a bus that comes there that allows doing some basic dental care. So providing for these people to get them a little care up front. A lot of these people do not get to see doctors, so that's good for that. They're also given information on how to access some of our behavioral health and human services, whether that's addiction or other services that we provide. And they're given those contacts, they can go to our offices after they leave the shelter. As far as food insecurity, the county helped quite a few food banks last year. We do have a nonprofit grant program, and one of the things that we all did as a commission was we made sure that those went to a lot of the food banks throughout the county. And just by happenstance, that money went out right before the SNAP benefits were taken away, and so that was something that made us really happy. As far as affordable housing, we do work very closely with Habitat for Humanity and other nonprofits to provide housing There are two counties north and south of us, Coos Bay and Tillamook. They're looking into it's called the Middle Income Revolving Loan Program, and that can be done with the help of the county through tax abatements, a little bit of giving some breaks on those. And what that does is that addresses housing for the people that are in the 80 to 120% of the median income, and allows those families to have access to a home. As the other thing we can do is we can support education. I think we do a pretty good job in creating programs at the community college that would allow people to get into jobs in our community. We have the EMT program at the community college, which my daughter took advantage of, and she's now a paramedic here in town. So that's a big deal. They're teaching kids how to weld up there, teaching other people that need to have access to better paying jobs and getting them trained up on those. So I think that we need to support those programs and make sure that the people know that they're available.
And I apologize. That was good. I did include the housing, affordable housing with the poverty question.
Oh, okay.
So, go ahead, Kathy.
So I love this subject. I'm just going to start right now because I could talk forever on this subject because it's been a lifelong endeavor for me. So I started by letting you know a little bit about myself, and that I grew up in a Boston community where I was displaced, right? So what that meant is after years of disinvestment, my community was so run down that I literally went to an elementary school with metal detectors to search us before we went into school. That's the environment that I grew up in. And that's not even to tell you that I was born into a ghetto, an actual housing unit, Columbia Point, Massachusetts, which was torn down, and rightfully so. So I understand the housing issue from the very beginning. So I've been in a project. I was displaced from my home in Massachusetts. I went to a community that did have a lot of affordable housing, and I got my master's in public policy, writing my capstone paper on affordable workforce housing. So affordable housing, thank you for pointing out, has two sides to the story. Affordable housing that helps low income, where we calculate things based on area median income, which is the calculation that you use to identify who needs the most help. So somebody is very low income, or that 80 to 120, which is workforce. And then I've also worked on housing affordability, which is that workforce housing, that middle income. I'm currently serving on the Middle Housing RAC, which is a rulemaking advisory committee. So right now I'm reviewing the rules for the state on the middle housing cluster of homes that they want to create. So in order to get through zoning, and we've all heard how that's a barrier to housing, the state wants to create a program where plans will be made available for certain kinds of specific homes. So a single-family home with an attached ADU or detached ADU, and then some cottage cluster homes. What should the rules be around that? What kind of lots can you put those homes in? What's the bare minimum and regulations to get these templates basically available so that you can build quickly? So building is a great solution to housing. We're never going to catch up. We have 10 years in backlog of building that we need to do. So we're always going to build. That's a given. And we're going to find where we can build all the time. I'm also on a committee with the Habitat for Humanity and the Housing Authority and all the other small partner developers here in the county that work on this issue every day. And I'm in that because they know that I'm an ally and I'm super interested in, I speak their language. I'm super interested in housing and what they do here and about the programs and projects. One of the things they mentioned to me that they would love to have is the lists of where they can build. So they had a meeting with different cities, all invited. The county was included in that meeting. And they said, where can we build? We've got projects. Where are the lots? Where's buildable lots? And so they would love like an easy to read spreadsheet that all the communities provide. So they, with sort of the highest and best use rating, right? So the city says, no, that's an easement. You can't build there. No, this is not suitable for housing and this is why. So they would love an easy to reference. Now, Cynthia, thank you for pointing out that every community does build a plan that they have to submit to the state, but that's almost outdated the second it's submitted. A lot of hard work goes into that, and those plans last for a good length of time, and they do a lot of policy and planning for each community, but what they don't do is keep a rapid list of inventory that developers, any developer from out of state, from in-state, or our community partners can access and see where the lots are, because that's what they care about. That's also what we're talking about in this middle housing rulemaking advisory committee is they want to know where the lots are because the lot size determines what they can build and can help ease their way through planning. So I know my time is low. There's a lot of things in housing that I know that we can do, but there's things that don't take as much effort as we think they do as building does. Building is great. We have to keep building. We have to keep helping the developers find the lots. But the other things that we can do is maintain the homes that we currently have and keep them from falling into disrepair, because that's what caused me to have to lose my home. So when a community doesn't invest, doesn't help seniors, doesn't help homes from falling into slum and blight, then those homes only become usable by a big time developer who wants to flip the house and make a lot of excessive rent, or they want to build some, new hotel or something that none of us can really afford to live in. And so we have to keep those homes well maintained. And there are programs that do that using community development block grants. It's called CDBG funding. You have HUD and HOME, and those programs allow you to create things that make your home stay affordable, and they're called naturally occurring affordable housing, and we need to do more of that here in the county.
Thank you. I'm going to, it's 6:15, I'm going to give the public a chance to communicate with you guys, so that was the last question. So you can,
I'm familiar with most of you, but I didn't catch your name.
Hi, I'm Sherry Brubaker. I'm running for position 1, and I live in Walport. I've been in Lincoln County since 2013. I arrived for my husband's federal job during the 2013 shutdown, and that is pretty much where my commitment to this community started. And since then, my first foray into community was as a homeschool mom, and I wanted to find other like-minded people, so I started a homeschool group. And from there, I just, we fell in love with this community, and we leave. Federal jobs, you usually, there often isn't a job in the next job series for you to take, so you often have to move. And so we thought we'd be here for 2 or 3 years and we'd move on. And we fell in love with this community. And when my son started school, I became a local journalist. I was a newspaper reporter first, and then I worked I did a few stories for Quentin Smith at Yachats News. It was Yachats News then, and I covered county issues. I covered the Board of Commissioners for the News Guard up in Lincoln City. And then I became news director at Uquina Bay Communications radio stations. I prepared a news broadcast every day, and I had a show called Hotline where I would invite elected officials, scientists, community leaders, interesting people, artists, and that really helped me to understand this community. And for the last 3 years I've been working for, I'm almost done, I've been working for Congresswoman Val Hoyle, and I was her field representative here in Lincoln County, also in Benton County and Coastal Lane County. And that gave me a front row seat to what's going on from the federal level. I had the good fortune to meet just the most incredible people doing the work in the trenches all the time. Local agencies, state agencies, federal agencies, and I've built relationships with all of those people that I will bring to the county commission to be able to help our community, help our board of commissioners serve our community, but also rebuild the lost trust and repair the relationship so that we can be more prosperous and better meet the needs of those people who rely on government services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to ask a question? I guess that's it. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, did you have one? I'm sorry.
Give us a few more minutes. We have to think of some questions.
We can also mingle if you want to just ask us individually questions.
I have one more question, if you guys don't have it. Do you guys have, any favorite for alternative energy? Favorites for that? Anybody want to start with that one?
I'll start because I'll let the scientists go next. But I know that Kristen and I both have had solar on our homes or have solar on our homes. I also drive an electric vehicle, and I'm thinking my stars right now. But the new technology that, well, it's not new technology, but balcony solars, I think are very important for our community. And basically, back east, they've started developing solar panels that people can hang off their balconies. That's why they're called that. They're smaller in size, but they come with battery storage. And because it's smaller and for personal use, power companies have tended to not fight against that. And so it's made it easier for individuals, and I think low-income individuals and seniors to potentially use this into the future so that they can put that right on their balconies and lower their costs at home. So I'm really excited about that. I know that some people have read about the wind energy turbine that's been put off of the coast of Rhode Island, which I don't think is a good option for us because we have such a different coastal environment than they have back east. And so that's not something that I'm super supportive of because I do care about the ocean deeply, and I don't want to do anything that could potentially add trash into the ocean or harm the ocean or the animals in the ocean. So that would be my take.
Kristen?
Scientists go.
Sure, yeah. So I definitely support, especially individual solar projects. Again, yes, I own solar panels in my house. I'm also interested and supportive of smaller scale community solar and potentially even small scale community wind. Those have to be put in the right places for both conflicting uses, environmental impacts. But I think there are opportunities there. And I know our local power municipalities are interested and have helped support some of those smaller scale community projects before. Lincoln County in the state of Oregon has invested in offshore wave energy, as Walter mentioned in his introduction, the PAC Wave facility, which is a research facility that's managed by Oregon State University. There was a multi-year public process to find a location for it that would minimize both environmental impacts and also conflicts with fishermen. The idea is it's a testing grid out there, and different power companies can come and test their devices at the PAC Wave facility. And there is an agreement with Lincoln County PUD or Lincoln PUD that once these testing devices actually get grid connected, which is not currently, but it will be very soon, that Lincoln PUD will actually be accepting that energy. It'll be going to the grid. So again, that was a very long process to come to agreement of where it should be. And so I'm supportive of continuing that. I am very skeptical of offshore wind. I think, again, the technology for offshore wind, especially off the Oregon coast, is not there yet. And I think there are some very serious both environmental and conflicts with fishing that probably will not make it feasible. But I am happy to continue a discussion, and I would be happy to represent the county in any sort of federal process to discuss that type of energy.
I think the Packway facility is absolutely fascinating. I toured that. The idea that we can generate energy just by the motion of the waves is just incredible. It's not set up to be wave energy all across our coast. As Kristen mentioned, it's a test facility. So companies from all over the world can come here and test out this technology. And I think that's great. We haven't started talking about deploying it yet. It's just a test facility off of Seal Rock at this point. But there was a lot of debate around wind energy. There was a lot of opposition from environmental groups, from the fishermen, from animal rights activists. The decision of where to place them was not made collaboratively. And so there was a lot of resistance. There's a lot of talk right now and a lot of action actually around deactivating dams to restore salmon. That's great. It's wonderful. We need to do that. But at the same time, we have to replace that energy. So we need to have discussion around these different options that we have. And it's very important that everybody is heard. And I think that much like we were successful in slowing and potentially halting ice, we were able to, as a community, we were able to slow that process that was just steamrolling right ahead. And they were ready to start giving leases to companies. And so that's the power of our community. That's the power of our local officials who banded together, everyone, all the cities, the county, and so many of our organizations. So that's the power. We have to work together.
Walter, did you want to add anything?
Sure. No, I think renewable energy is, we need to look at it, but it needs to be proven. Solar, onshore wind, it needs to be responsibly done. I think that whenever we can create energy from renewable resource where it's needed, I think that's best. Using large tracts of public land for huge solar farms, we need to think about that, just because of the environmental damage and the displacement of wildlife. Packway site was brought up. I was one of the people that helped site it there, the people that helped bring it here. And the reason that the fishermen did that was FERC, the Federal Energy
Regulatory Commission.
Yeah, relation. Yeah. It's too much alphabet soup. But they were going to put the entire state waters for lease. Lincoln County said, oh, you know what, we'll put in for the lease and we will just own that. No, nothing will come here. Well, it was too expensive. And so what the county commissioners really did was they gathered a bunch of fishermen together to make sure that at least that industry would not be displaced. And the other thing was, the ocean is a very tough environment, and the people who work out there for their livelihoods know what works and what doesn't work out there. And the idea was that if anybody was going to put something out there, that they should talk to the people that work out there, and also we can learn from each other, and we did. The best thing about having it out there is that the technology, whether we use it in our waters or not, can be taken somewhere else. It could go out to the islands, in the Polynesian islands, where they use fossil fuels to generate electricity. And if we can do a wave energy buoy here that can be tested here, and we can take that technology and send it out there, that's what we saw as the overall benefit. And if it does work, that's even better. And it will show people that it works. You can assess what type of damages or whatever impacts to the environment in a smaller setting without doing industrial development. And that's what we thought was the best thing to do. Prove it works, and then you'll get more support that way. So as far as the offshore wind, I was one of the people on the task force. It was terrible. So it was not, it was done once down in 2000 and teens, down Wind Float off Hughes Bay, and the second iteration was not good either. Like I said, the process was not good. It was done from the top down, and basically the area out there was going to be leased out to the developers, and then the people who were impacted would have a say at the beginning of the process and at the end, and that was it. I think the state of Oregon did a great job. County commissioners, state representatives, the governor's office did a really good job, and then in the end, one of the things that stopped it was the funding stuff went away for it. So I can see that might come up again. The governor's office has a roadmap to what can go on out there, and I think that we just need to make sure that renewable energy is a source, but it needs to be responsibly done also.
And I would follow up with Walter says, one of the biggest champions that really helped drive the wave energy discussion was a Lincoln County commissioner. It was former Commissioner Terry Thompson. I mean, if you've ever worked with Terry, he's a pain in the butt, but man, he will advocate for his community, and he did. And it's what's got the process to a place where more coastal communities were happy with how wave energy in state waters was planned for. And so, again, an important role of a county commissioner, what they can play as an advocate for our community.
Thank you.
There was a question back there. No.
Cynthia had a question.
There, from the back, go ahead.
No, I know, I was gonna pull too big a thread, it was gonna go on.
Cynthia?
Well, I'm trying to ask a short question too, but, I would really like to see a robust county climate action plan. I know some of the towns and cities have their climate action plans where they're saving water, but to me, none of that is very strong at this point. How might you approach that if you think that's worthwhile?
I'm happy to. I do think a county commissioner can be a convener to pull groups together. I would actually think a place I would be interested in starting is looking just at county infrastructure and facilities and what we as a county have power over to do for making energy efficiencies or reducing pollution, and where water, conserving water might be able to do. I think that's doable. I think we can get enough parties together, and because it would be what county has control over, we'd actually be able to follow through on action. So that would be a place I would be interested in potentially starting.
I would just say it has to be comprehensive, because what you're talking about, I've seen that impact. The community that I moved from is now facing a catastrophic climate issue with the Great Salt Lake shrinking. If that turns into a dust bowl, that's going to be catastrophic for that area. So conservation and climate adjustments, I know firsthand experience, extremely crucial. So I moved to a state that had more water, but we have our own issues, right? And when you hear that Oregon, we've had drought restrictions already, we know like the writing's on the wall. So I would be for the long-term sustainable planning, which I think, having a scientist on the commission would be a great asset for that. But also I would want to do sort of the low-hanging fruit and the smaller end of things. So we have to look at, I know that Coffin Butte, and Walter knows all about that. Coffin Butte is a big issue, and where are we going to have our next landfill? We also have to do how is recycling being done, and are we maximizing what we can do there? What does that look like from curbside through the whole entire process? And does our community know what that whole process is? I think that more community members can be brought to bear to add some expertise. And, you know, if Kristen wants to convene, we can convene on the low end of things, what the county residents can do, and on the high end of things, let's bring the experts and the scientists and all the people who have the great ideas to help us avoid the pitfalls. So I would like that comprehensive approach.
Okay, thanks, Walter. I think it's really important that the cuts that are happening to NOAA and the fisheries and things like that are really gonna hurt our climate, and we have to fight that. And I know our delegation is trying to push back against those cuts, but, you know, NOAA, our tsunami warning system is under NOAA, under the National Weather Service. And it's really important that our fishermen have that information. It's very important that that we have those warnings, that we have the warning system. And right now, you can look online and you can see what buoys are not operating. And I've had to inquire with NOAA and say, you know, why is this buoy not working? And they said, well, it's not related to the actual warning system, but, you know, we have to fund those programs. And our blue economy here, the fishing, the science, our aquarium, all of it, the industry that supports fishing, it alone, I can't remember how many million it was, but Lincoln County studied that. And we know how important that is, so we have to protect it. Coastal erosion is happening. You know, we have to combat that. We have to have a plan. And I think the most important thing, and it goes back to where I started with my introduction, and that is we're not operating with the same set of facts. And we need everybody on board, because flooding, you know, the failure of the dams, any one of those things is going to affect all of us. So we have to work on preparedness. We have to work on making sure that we can keep NOAA here. NOAA came here from Washington, and Washington would really love to have those 630 some jobs, I think it is, back up there. We want to keep it here, and so that's a dialogue that has to keep going. We need to make sure everyone values that science the way all of us do. But I share your concern. I think we all do. We just have to make sure that everybody is operating on the same set of facts, respecting the same science, and that's a challenge.
Thank you. Walter?
I would just first suggest the state has a climate roadmap. I looked at that. It's actually, they have some very good ideas in there, and the best thing I like about that is they're talking about funding all those things. At the county budget, I think that what we can do is do things that are actionable, whether that's getting fuel efficient vehicles, you know, like electric vehicles and things like that. Small things that we can do at the county level. The other thing is teaching our visitors a little bit of conservation here. We increase our populations 2 to 3, 4 times every weekend. They create a lot of solid waste. That's one of my pet projects is solid waste, and trying to find out where we're going to take our garbage next. The other thing is water conservation. You know, just because it's green here doesn't mean we have water in abundance. Making sure they are conserving those resources, because when they are here using those resources, that is when our rivers are at the lowest levels. So I'm going to try and work with some of the chambers of commerce and teaching people how to be better visitors here, to respect our resources and work on how we can control a little bit of climate change here. I was a water plant operator for 15 years before I became a county commissioner. So I've seen what the water needs and how quickly our creeks and rivers run dry, and how much we need to conserve those, especially now with the fluctuating river levels. I mean, Sluts River was already in mid-summer levels this week. So we just need to and we have 3 large cities pumping out of that in August and September when it's the lowest. So we need to make sure that we conserve those resources, and those are the actionable things I think we can do as a county. Making sure that our residents know what's going on, but also the people that are visiting here and impacting those resources, use them wisely.
Can I just add one thing? Is I've heard an answer to a lot of these questions was, we're gonna write grants, we're gonna pursue grants, we're gonna go after more funding, and that's something I've been doing for an entire career. So I think you need somebody that knows grants. Just saying. Oh, AJ.
Yes, I'm just kind of wondering, I got specifically the area of 101 just north of town here that is in very bad disrepair and does cause traffic accidents and deaths. Is there any pressure or preferably collaboration that you guys could do with ODOT to get that in a better state of repair?
Walter, you want to take that?
Well, I'll start and then Walter can wrap it up with more expertise. But I'm on the Oregon Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and that committee gets information periodically about the STIP plan, which is the state capital improvement plan that they have. They've changed the structure of that recently, so how projects get to the top of the list has altered a little bit. But folks that work in transportation are constantly talking about the capital improvements that need to happen. Cities are all vying for the funding, and we're all clamoring for our projects and our streets to make to the top of the list. We have regional representatives that also help us with that. They come out and meet with us so that we can get our projects moved and bumped up. But we all have heard, especially these last couple of legislative sessions, that ODOT is embattled and they're facing major financial, I don't want to say crisis, because they're functioning and now they're hiring up finally after this short session. So they're working their way back from being at the edge of the abyss, I guess, and for us not getting any work done. So those things happen, those negotiations continue. Cities are at the front line of requesting that funding. Those of us who are in committees are fighting constantly to not be left out of the conversation. Usually the bigger cities and the inland locations tend to always fight for the bigger dollars, and we always, those of us here from the coast are always going, well, what about the coast? What about the coast? I feel like a broken record, because every time I'm in a meeting I'm saying, but what about the coast? So that's what I have to say. We're all trying.
Does anybody else want to try, or?
I guess I would just like to say, I would love to come up with a long-term solution that's not just this is a coastal erosion issue.
You mentioned that earlier.
This
That's
is a
kind of
coastal
what brought
erosion
it up in my
issue.
mind.
But that means rerouting 101. That's a big, huge deal. But I think the county can play a role in those conversations and helping bring people together to work with ODOT. But I'm not saying that's easy. That I'll hand it to Walter, who probably has a lot more experience.
So our area is called the Cascade West.
Good evening. The library will be closing in 20 minutes. Internet stations will shut down soon, so please save your work. The library will close in 20 minutes.
So there are area commissions on transportation throughout the state. There are 14 different ones. We are the Cascade West. We are Lynn, Lincoln, and Benton counties. I was on that as a port commissioner, and so what our act does is set priorities for the 3 counties. And we also, whether it's a Connect Oregon grant, the port had one, and then we put those in the pot. Once all those things are put into the pot, all 14 acts fight over on the act fights over which projects are the most important, and they basically put a few forward, and then the 14 acts fight over all that money. And that's not just, so right now, as far as Agate Beach, that stretch, the Agate Beach stretch to Cascade Head, or not Cascade Head, sorry, Cape Foulweather, that used to be 3 to 5 different projects. It now combined it into one, so you have that three-way stretch. But the reason that it was divided in 3 to 5 projects is each one of those pieces has an issue with it. Kristen would know, if you think that you're going to be able to put riprap down to shore, that's not going to happen. And so each one of those little pieces is gonna come with a little bit of a different issue with it. The bridge needs to get fixed, and so that is on the, I'm the chair right now, and so Agate Beach is on, it's on the priority list, but it's also on the list of things to get done. A lot of that has to do with funding. You know, ODOT's gonna face some funding shortages. They will keep addressing it. As far as rerouting it, I've heard of rerouting 101 and doing, doing all these other things. That's, $200 million job. And it's just gonna keep getting expensive. And
And
they will,
land
they will,
acquisitions,
they will
yeah.
continue to address it. I can't say that they will ever fix it. But it would become, if you wanted to go around, honestly, would you rather have around to Agate Beach or would you rather have a new bridge? And it's gonna come down to the cost of all these things. And we have to make sure, and our act does a pretty good job of making sure that our priorities are there and things getting fixed. And the tribe is also on that. We do a good job of advocating for the things that need to get done here, but in the end, we're just one of 14 and we need to make sure that we advocate for our area. And one of the things that we do use is that a lot more people from Benton and Lynn County come through our county and drive a lot of roads and even Multnomah County. Is just make sure that, hey, this is important. It's an important part of the state and we need to get it fixed and hopefully sooner rather than later. But
We're both reminding them all the time
Yeah.
that if the road doesn't work, the tourists don't come.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do throw that in there from time to time in our conversation.
I would just point out that we also have a road that we can't even pass through right now, Highway 226. People have to go all the way around through Toledo to get to Lincoln City, and a lot of people out that way work in Lincoln City. So we are facing huge issues, and that's one of the most controversial matters that the state is dealing with right now, is how to fund road improvements. So that's State Representative Gomberg's purview, but it affects us. So we need to work on that. But there's just such a great need, and there was a lot of opposition to increasing that state budget to do that work. So vote.
Infrastructure.
Thank you, guys. And thank everybody for coming, and please spread the word. You're a good group of people to hear, and I think we all need to hear it.
Does anybody want a card? You didn't get one? Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone that joined us tonight. Lots of great answers and questions from the candidates. And I hope to see you all on the next one.
I would have asked, like, hey man, we can't find every bit.